late. Most of our attendees are going to be coming in late in February and March and April as they come back and review this video. So hello, folks out there in social equity applicant hopeful land. My name is Dimitri Downing. Thank you for joining us. Bear with us. This is the first time we've ever done this project. This is a one-of-a-kind course that we hope will be replicated across the national industry, state by state, as more social equity applications and opportunities become available. What we have done is get together the members of the industry, probably about 50 to 100 industry professionals over the next 16 weeks. We'll be dividing the industry structure up in Arizona into modules. What is a dispensary? What is a cultivation, et cetera, so that you can learn from a bird's eye view as to what the Arizona industry looks like, where it came from, who's involved, all the basics. So we give you as much as we can give you so that when you do apply for the social equity program, which we anticipate will be in June, but we'll get to Dr. Humble here in a second on that. You have as much as we can possibly have given you for free and contacts out there, dozens and dozens of contacts who we're here on this social equity call over the next, these courses over the next 16 weeks that want you to reach out to them so they can help you along your journey. So sometimes I get a little emotional about this project because I put a lot of time into it and thought into it. So I'm really happy that it's getting started. And I'm really pleased that you guys today could join us for the introductory panel. So let me tell you a little bit about what's going to happen today. First, I want to introduce everybody who's behind the scenes, and then I want to talk about how the course is going to work. And then we're going to take a deeper dive into social equity, what it might be in Arizona and what it is nationally and why it's so tied to the cannabis industry and the spirit of the cannabis plant. So let me first introduce my co-host, and he's going to give a little self-introduction. Over the next 16 weeks, you're going to hear from Jeff Tice and Paul Paredes and Dimitri Downing as your facilitators, moderators, who are going to divide up the industry into 16 different modules, which you can see on the META website. And they're going to be hosting, I'm going to be hosting, we're going to mix it up, and we're going to have all kinds of panelists. But you first know who Paul is, because he's not going to introduce himself in deep length at every single module. Paul, go ahead.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Paul Paredes of AZMJ Logic, cannabis consulting company, helping license holders with operations. I'm a data analyst and IT guy by trade originally, but I started in this industry about 6 years ago. I've been consulting on my own since 2018 and kind of sharing my expertise and knowledge with the Arizona license holders. If anybody has any questions, my contact information is, I believe, listed
on the website. Everything will be on the website. All the emails of all the panelists will be on the website in perpetuity.
And yeah, so just feel free to ask questions. I'm a pretty open book.
Yeah, Paul's a great guy. I mean, I rely on him for knowledge. He does compliance. He does everything there is to know about dispensaries and cultivations. This guy knows far beyond my knowledge. So thank you, Paul, for volunteering your time, for helping people. It really warms my heart to work with you as well. Let me introduce our next co-facilitator moderator, who's also a good friend of mine, 8 years, long journey, Jeff, 150 conferences, 50 some odd META meetings. Jeff Tice, would you introduce yourself to the audience?
Thank you, Dimitri. A pleasure being here. Jeff Tice, I'm a CPA. I was also a license holder a few years ago in the first round, 2012, as they came out. I waited behind the counters. I've helped patients and customers and opened a number of additional dispensaries and cultivation facilities. And I'm also very involved in buy and sell side representation, meaning that if somebody wants to sell a dispensary or buy one, I have leads. I'm working on a number of projects now, and I also get involved rather heavily, as Dimitri alluded to earlier, in fixing partnerships or fixing companies that that have not spent the time to get educated like we're doing here and get into disputes. And so I help work closely with the legal counsel in providing solutions for folks in the industry. And on the side, I also teach and develop curriculum and really enjoying the opportunity to participate in this camp. Thank you.
So you're going to be getting to know Jeff and Paul pretty well over the next 16 weeks. So you'll be able to ask some questions. We encourage you to stay on the live events because you'll be able to answer and ask and answer questions on the chat, and the panelists look at the chat. If you're watching this and you're watching it recorded, I'm sorry, the chat's not working. Sorry about that, but feel free to call us and email us anytime if you do have questions. So real quickly, before anything else, Copper State, Weed Maps, Scottsdale Community College, Zuber Lawler, thank you for your participation. And folks, let me tell you, when I came up with this idea back in August and September, when I realized how much our town halls, which are available on our META website, which is also a resource that you can go to learn about hundreds of members of the cannabis community. When I realized that hundreds and thousands of people were watching our YouTube videos to learn about the Arizona industry, and I realized that this was a need for the social equity applicants, it was a natural fit for META to gather up industry members and to make this all happen. But, you know, there's administrative costs and, you know, we can't just, you know, live off bread and water, although we're close to that. So we needed a little bit of help, and not just a good friend named Paul. That didn't work out well for another guy before us. But so we called Weed Maps, we called Copper State, we called Scottsdale Community College, we called Zuber Lawler. They stepped up and funded this whole project. They underwrote it. They helped us. I mean, I cannot tell you what Weed Maps means to the national and international cannabis community. I cannot tell you what Copper State means to Arizona. Zuber Lawler, in regards to their legal skills and their willingness to help future applicants. Bless all of you guys, and thank you for your participation. And we'll get more into our relationship and how they're going to be involved over the next 16 weeks. We're still looking for sponsors. We're still looking for module sponsors. We're still looking for industry members. As soon as our whole curriculum is finalized, it almost is finalized, it'll be available online. Yeah, that's a work in progress. So let me next introduce another important person, Kim Prince from Proven Media. She does PR for META. Kim, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Hi, Dimitri. Thank you, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Kim Prince. I'm the founder of Proven Media. We're a PR firm dedicated to the cannabis industry, which we shifted into in about 2014. Really, basically, what I'm here is to assist Dimitri with public relations efforts. We're getting some national press already. We're hearing from reporters around the country that this is really a groundbreaking event. So I'm so excited to welcome everyone here. And I'm, again, Kim Prince with Proven Media. If any of you on the panel want to talk about, hi, Dimitri. Oh, you're waving. Want to talk, understand about how to communicate about your brand, your company, or your stakeholder relations, that's where we come in. And again, just huge shout out to Dimitri for having me on this groundbreaking event. I'm honored to be with all the panelists behind the scenes. Thank you, Dimitri.
Yeah, so thank you, Kim, for joining us. And I'm sure you'll be a resource to the social equity applicants at a later date. And by the way, I'm getting a lot of communications from different people that says, hey, I want to announce that we're going to donate these services to the social equity applicants that win. So the 26 eventual winners of these licenses should know things like Weed Maps is going to give like a free year of all these different, they got a whole package together, which is just, you know, kick butt. Proven Media is going to donate its PR services for 5 years. I'm just kidding.
A lifetime.
I'm just kidding. Maxine's the foremost expert in application writing in the country is on the call right now. So I'm going to make a joke about her donating her services as well, but I'm just kidding, Maxine. So let's move forward. Who else do I need to introduce here? Dr. Bobra is an important part of our strategic team. Scottsdale Community College, you want to explain your relationship with META?
Hi, yes, I'm Dr. Barbara Crockett. I am the faculty lead for the Cannabis program at Scottsdale Community College. And I'm really excited because my employers and administrators thought this was a very important industry to bring validation to and to eliminate some of the stigmas because it is a valid industry medicinally and otherwise. And so we have a 4 credit classes developing and currently running not-for-credit classes. And we are working with MEDA as partners, as industry experts. Really, really excited that we are sharing curriculum and educating the world right now. We're getting emails literally from across the country about the work that we're doing together. So I'm very, very excited to be among these wonderful industry experts.
And, you know, our partnership with Scottsdale Community College started last fall as we decided to put this stuff together. And Dr. Borber knew that we wanted to give it away for free to the social equity applicants, all this knowledge. But on an ongoing basis, as the industry changes, as the regulatory structure changes, medicinal adult use, state by state, all this stuff, there's going to be a cannabis class at Scottsdale Community College in the summer and the fall that you'll be able to take 2023, 2024, 24, and so on. This moment in time that we're doing here will disappear into the annals of history, but we'll have put together a really big project to help the social equity applicants going forward. And all the experts hopefully will coalesce around Scottsdale Community College, and that will be a big cannabis party going forward. Lots of knowledge, lots of information and stuff. And yeah, we need to talk about something else too, but sorry. Before I forget, let me see if I got any more introductions here. Destiny Blanco, up there in the corner, there's a social equity applicant mentorship program, the social equity team. Destiny Blanco does all the administration, all the operations, everything that is MEDA, she helps do. She's incredible. Say hi, Destiny. She's behind the screen.
Hello. Thank you, Dimitri.
So thank you for helping always. We love you. And then Emmy is back there. Is Emmy behind the screens too? Say hello.
Emmy? Hi.
Okay, Emmy, she's also operations. Danielle is in charge of sponsorships, strategic partnerships, and she's helped me to go for the last 4.5 years, almost 5 years now. And we can tell you, we're hoping to be back live in person in March or April, whenever we can, but it's amazing that we've been able to hold it together over the last year. So thank you, team, for keeping it together. So I've got all that sponsors, I've got that structure. Have I given enough of a structure as to how the next 16 weeks is going to work?
I believe for the most part, you know, every week we have a specific topic, and panelists, you know, will be sent an outline of kind of the topics that we're going over. Today is really basic. We're going over the who, what, when, where, and why of social equity. And, you know, we have a ton of experts here on this panel that I'm going to toss some of these questions to and some of these historical reference points to. So.
Okay, so yeah, so you know, the outlines will be coming out. Just make sure you stay consistent with our emails, that you're all registered online properly, and we'll get information to you. Let me introduce the rest of our panelists so we can start to get into the heart of, and today's the only one you don't have to take notes on, by the way, folks. This is good. When he starts talking about how to open your dispensary, start taking notes. That's number 4 or 5. State laws, that's number 2. So that's down the line. Today is all fun. It's all administrative. We're getting into the nebulous conversation about social equity. Let me real quickly introduce our first panelist, Dr. Will Humble. And let me tell you what an honor it is to have him as part of our program. In 2010, when the state passed the medical marijuana program, he was given the task as the director of DHS to create a system that could deliver cannabis to patients. He did that, and he ran until 2015 when he left, and to do other things. Now, I'm told that this is the first cannabis consulting project that he's taken it on because he saw the nature of what we're doing here to help other people. So if that is the case, please remind me, and I think that we're really honored to have you. And what he's going to be doing is giving us his special insights into what the process is and what's going to happen as the current director and team develops the social equity rules and applications, and then interprets them, and merit-based, lottery, whatever they do decide. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Dr. Humble and take like 5-10 minutes and give us the insights here. But he's going to be on, he's going to be on every other week for like 30 seconds to 5 minutes to give an update about what's happening in social equity at the state level before Paul and Jeff and I get into the meat of the industry. So that way, everyone who's part of our system can know that they get the most updated current information. And then when DHS does finally release the rules, whatever they create, Dr. Humble and application experts like Maxine and a few others are going to lay out what they think the next best steps are for the social equity applicants. I can't think of a better way to help people than to give you guys all this information. So again, I hope we got it structured right. Panelists, feel free to jump in anytime and say, Dimitri, change this, change that. Because we're just inventing this as we go over the last 3 months. But let's get to Dr. Humble, and then we're going to go to Maxine, and then we're going to get to our special guests, Tom, Andrew, Tahir, and Kika to talk about social equity. But let's start with Dr. Humble. Maybe introduce yourself some more and tell us about Arizona.
Yeah, thanks, Dimitri. And this is the first project that I've committed to over time. I've given guest lectures and things like that at meetings and that kind of thing. But this is really the first time that I've taken on a commitment like this. And like you said, it's because I feel like this is an important part of the overall implementation of the Act. I was an enthusiastic supporter of the Act that passed a few months ago. My primary motivation for supporting the law, and I supported it publicly, is really I'm very passionate about criminal justice reform of marijuana laws. That was the primary thing that really put me over the line and made me a supporter. I am a longtime public health person. I've spent 35 years or so in the public health field in various different capacities. And as Dimitri mentioned, I was fortunate enough to be asked by Governor Brewer to be the director of the state health department during her term in office, those 6 years. I worked under the Ducey administration for a couple of months and figured that I just saw signs that wasn't going to be the right kind of environment for me. But the Brewer administration was a great fit. As you know, the Medical Marijuana Act passed back in November 2010, and it gave that responsibility to the Arizona Department of Health Services. And I'll say at the beginning, look, I had no knowledge whatsoever about the cannabis industry at all in 2010. I knew I knew the voter initiative inside and out. I knew the statutory language. I read it probably 50 times before the voters approved it, because I wanted it to start sinking in, because I had a sense that it was going to pass. And if it was going to be my responsibility to execute and make a responsible medical marijuana program, I needed to do some homework up front. If you recall, that statute back in 2010 gave the ADHS 120 days only to put the program together. That was a statutory limitation. So that meant we had to do things very quickly. So within 4 months, we had the program all put together. And by April, people were applying for cards, April of 2011. And I honestly, I think that my team and I did a really thoughtful job putting together as responsible of a program as we could, given the statutory limitations that we had. There's some things I really would have preferred to see in the implementation of the law that aren't there. I'm troubled by the lack of transparency that was in the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act around, the activities, the inspection results of the various dispensaries, the regulatory actions of the department. There were many things that I think would have really improved that implementation of that law. But look, and that's the thing that we'll be talking about as we go through this process, is that, the agency, by this I mean the Arizona Department of Health Services, they got to work within the boundaries of what the voters gave them. they have to work within the boundaries of the voter initiative. You can think of the statute that the voters approved a couple of months ago as the skeleton. That's the structural framework for this new retail marijuana law. What the agency is doing right now with the new rules, transitioning the medical marijuana dispensaries into retail stores, is using the statutory language and building regulations or rules, which you can think of as the tissue, the blood, the bones, the skin. That's what makes the organism work. The statute is the skeleton. The rules are the organism itself. And together it can work in an effective way if you have smart people that are dedicated to putting together a good regulatory program that, in the true spirit of what the voters approved, and are creative and listen to all kinds of stakeholders, industry members, as well as just ordinary Arizonans. And that's what I'm hopeful that the Arizona Department of Health Services will be doing, both in the process right now around licensing the existing and transitioning the existing medical marijuana dispensaries. But importantly, what we're talking about in this seminar, and will be for many weeks now, is, how is it and what kind of decisions is the agency going to make to turn the social equity license provisions that the voters approved, to turn that into something that's going to work, that's built in the spirit of what the voters approved. And I was fortunate to work under Governor Brewer, who had a hands-off approach as a governor. She trusted, the way she worked was, if she trusted you, she trusted your decisions, and she didn't feel a need to have people in the governor's office involved in the process. And that was a real, I really appreciated that through the entire years within the administration. And sadly, that's not the environment that the current agency is working under. Governor Ducey is a very different type of person. I would say he's much more of a micromanager than Governor Brewer was. And so we're going to be working under a different structural political framework as we transition into the social equity license rulemaking. And I believe that, there may be some influence from the governor's office to the agency as they develop these rules. I don't know how much. I mean, in a way, it's this COVID thing is creating quite a distraction, and they're at nowhere near this administration in terms of navigating their way out of this because of the decisions that they've been making. That's a webinar for another day on another topic. Yeah. So that's what we'll be doing in the coming weeks, is looking at the agency framework, looking at how the rules get developed, why they get developed, who are the players that are making the decisions, what's the structural framework, statutorily, right. And then what do we think the process is going to look like? I'll get to your question in just a second, Dimitri, and then I just want to talk about, because I know I just have a few more minutes. So I do have, there's a number of team members that are still at the agency that I talk to and text and can get some information about. I'm not going to disclose anything here that's not, public information, but I am a conduit so that I can help get evidence to you so that you know what's happening, when it's happening, and the processes. And then, as Dimitri mentioned, at the end, once the rules are finalized for social equity, we could dive into the details and go into the nuts and bolts. Where we are right now, from what I'm told at the agency, is the agency being the state health department, is right now they're busy transitioning the dispensaries, getting their licenses approved, turning them into not exclusively retail stores, but getting those dual licenses administered, getting the inspections done, and that kind of work. So that's their priority right now, as it should be. After that, they'll start looking and paying more attention to the social equity rules. Now, one thing to remember as we go through the seminar here is that the voters approved a law that does not have a definitive date or deadline for the agency to finish the rules. They do need to do it. They need to have these 26 equity licenses, but it doesn't say when. And so in some ways, we're at the mercy of the department to, in terms of the timeline. I will urge us as we go through this to be patient, because at the end, you want a good program. You don't want a fast program. And if you pressure the agency into making decisions before they're vetted, and if they put themselves under artificial constraints in terms of delivering a product or a rule package, we're going to get left with something that's not optimal. It's much better to take our time and get a social equity program that's effective, that works, that's in the spirit of the law that the voters approved. Because I tell you, once an agency finishes a rulemaking, they have no interest in going back and fixing it. Before I left in 2015, there were a bunch of things I wanted to fix in the Medical Marijuana Act, and I got the approval to do it, but late in the Brewer administration. But I quit. Then it was a transition, and I didn't want to work for Ducey, so I didn't stick around. We never did get around to that. But what I'm saying is, once an agency finishes a rulemaking like this, they want to move on to new things. They don't want 2 years from now to fix anything. So it's better to get it right than get it fast. I'm going to stress that throughout this program. So one of the things I'm going to encourage them to do, Dimitri, we haven't talked about this yet, but is that, they are doing some surveillance right now. The agency's looking to other states that have social equity provisions in their laws. So far, what they're telling me is that they haven't found anything that's a model program that's good. They found a lot of states that have gone bad. And you can learn from that too.
I think Andrew wants to talk about his model program a little later, but we'll get to that.
So, so they're looking for model programs that fit within the structure of what the voters approved. And I'm encouraging them to think about having some focus groups before the rulemaking as an information gathering session, so that they learn more about how to do this right. Because like I said, getting it right's way more important than getting it fast.
Yeah, and we anticipate, Dr. Hubble, if you hold your thought for 1 second, we anticipate almost all the social equity applicants, from the lawyers and lobbyists, et cetera, connecting to our program here over the next 2 or 3 months. So we want to make sure we give them the best information. Would it be accurate to say that it's more than likely April, May, when they start deciding on the rules of what social equity might look like, and then maybe application process later into Q3? And it's very important for people to note as they go through our course that whenever the date is adjusted to, then we'll finish off module 15 and 16 so that people can have the current application, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, given what the various things the agency's working on, and it's not just the marijuana program that's working on this. The agency needs to carve away what's called the administrative and rules section. This rulemaking is competing with lots of things, like the agency has a responsibility for the disposition of dead bodies law. They have to do rules on licensing midwives. So there's all these competing rule packages that are happening all together, and there's only so much bandwidth in the agency. And so this program, our program around social equity, is competing for resources within the agency to get this package done. So that's why, Dimitri, going back to what you just said, honestly, I got to tell you, I don't expect them to start working on this until at least May. That might be disappointing to some of you, but I think it's important for y'all to be realistic about what the timeline is going to be. And then once they start in May, the rulemaking process, and this is for another webinar later on, but the rulemaking process goes on for months. It was accelerated during the medical marijuana program because we had statutory authority to do it within 120 days, and we had exempt rulemaking, and we'll talk about what exempt means later. These rules are not exempt. They have to go through the normal process. So that means it's going to take, once they start, at least 6 months. So we're looking at in terms of timeline, I think the soonest we can expect a rule package might be September-ish. They'll start working on it earlier, you know, but like I said, let's keep our eye on the ball. What we want is a good program that will have longevity, that will give licenses to people who fit the criteria in the spirit of the statutory provision that the voters approved. That's what we want. We want a real social equity program. We don't want a fast one.
And I'm told that the legislature might actually there's some legislative activity to set a date and time as to when the applications need to be issued by in the fall, which could be interesting and impact this process. But regardless, if it's into May or June, it gives us more opportunity to add more modules and give more information to the people that will eventually apply. So, you know, although it would be nice to have it expedited, for the purposes of this course, we're creating this informational source that people can then come back and look to, because it will all be stored online on Meta, all this information. So as long as it happens sometime this year, we're okay.
No, I think it'll happen this year, but I don't want people to be overly optimistic about, well, just to be realistic, you know?
No,
I mean,
that's great. And we're going to be relying on you for, you know, a few minutes of reflection, the latest information as the process goes along. I think we're going to find a lot of legislative pressure is going to come to bear. Well, I don't know how that's going to impact, but
we'll see. Well, this session is going to be very, very odd.
Yeah.
Right now, they can't even get a quorum, you know, because so many of them have
Nobody's showing
COVID.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. And let me, so I can get everybody introduced. We'll
Yeah,
come
my
back.
pleasure.
Well, let me actually ask this. I haven't introduced everybody properly, but do any of the panelists have any questions for Dr. Humble?
No, but I did want to ditto what he was saying, and I think it's really important for social equity applicants. We have to end up being advocates for ourselves, and it is true. There are so many other programs and rulemaking that needs to happen. We're not a priority unless we apply pressure. And so it is important to get active and let the city know that this is something that we want to see happen, and be actively engaged in this process, not just wait on Dr. Humboldt to give us the information, but to get on those Zoom calls and hear what the city is speaking about, and get on those public comments and let them know that we are waiting and that we need resources. And I must say, the amount of time that's available, we need this amount of time to be educated. So it is actually a great amount of time that it is not opening in a few months, because not too many of us will be properly prepared.
No, and Kika, let me introduce you next. I know Maxine before the call told me she had to dip out a little bit early. So let me get to Maxine real quickly. I want to introduce everybody to my favorite application writer in the entire country, and perhaps the most knowledgeable person behind the scenes in cannabis. And if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, in case you got to dip out, just so you can introduce yourself to the social equity applicant world who'll see you over the next few months.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. So my name is Maxime, and thank you, Dimitri, for always having me on Meta. I hope no one's bored of me yet. But I am a cannabis consultant specializing in applications and licensing. I have participated in over 20 markets in the US. I am based here, our firm is based here in Arizona, Cannabis Business Advisors. And we do intend to assist social equity applicants at a discounted rate. And so we'll have some more affordable solutions for applicants when that time comes, once we know a little bit more about what the application process exactly entails. But if you are looking for assistance now to kind of gain an insight on some of the preliminary things you need to start thinking about in terms of your business, we can certainly schedule a quick call to kind of go over some of that. I do have a question for Dr. Humboldt, but I don't know if he's still here.
He popped out for a second.
No, I'm here. When I'm not talking, I'm taking my video off. That's all.
Okay. So you might not be able to answer this question, and feel free to say, I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, and I might have already asked you this before.
Dr. Fauci said that today. He said, I don't know.
Do you have any insight on whether or not you think this social equity program is going to be allocated based on a point system or a lottery?
Oh, I would be shocked if it's not a lottery,
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
because, and we could talk about why in a later
Right.
webinar, but
Right.
there's reasons why the agency is very, I think would be highly motivated to have it as a basic entry criteria, check the box kind of thing, and then lottery after that.
Yeah. And do you have any insight on whether they will probably be restricted to specific areas within the city, or within the state, or do you think it would be more of like a TBD type thing on where
Well,
their representation will
Yeah, I think that they will for sure stick with what the statutory provisions are. And then after that, we'll just see what the rules say. I mean, the rules are going to flesh that out. The statute says what they have to do, in terms of vacancy areas. But then after that, by the way, the statutory language gives just like medical marijuana act, the statutory language gives a lot of latitude to the department for the rulemaking.
Yeah. Okay, that's going to be interesting because I know a lot of states that have gone through social equity programs, and usually states mimic one and each other's programs, but none of them have gone through a lottery from my understanding for a social equity program. So that should be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Hey, we'll see, but I know the people that are there still, and I don't see them being, I used to I coached them, as I'm the agency director, I'm like, we are not going to grade essay papers. This is multiple choice and a random selection after that,
So I'm going to go back to Kika and get to here and Andrew in here real quickly. Anything else on the state though, from Jeff or Dr. Bober or Paul? Any questions for Dr. Humble before I move back to Kika so we can start talking about the relationship with cannabis and social equity and nationwide and their experience?
Dimitri, maybe just to follow on Dr. Humble's statement is, and there's been a number of questions on what is social equity, do I qualify here and there, but just to reemphasize that we don't know the answer to a number of questions. We can provide a template and a format as to what history has been and where we think the state is going, but the process requires that the department develop these rules, and whether it becomes, as he said, a lottery, potentially there will be a first pass to pre-qualify some applications, and we're going to get into much more detail on that. But again, I've seen a number of questions with regards to that, and the clarification is that we're certainly going to work with everyone to help be ready for whatever those particulars are as they come to light.
And one of the reasons why we designed this course and open it up to anyone who thinks they could be eligible for social equity is the knowledge acquired about dispensaries, about deal making that you can share, this knowledge about the industry in general. If you don't qualify for social equity, you're going to look to get a job. There's other opportunities. We're going to have other modules. You're going to get a certificate at the end. You're going to be well versed in what is Arizona cannabis. So it has benefits to everyone, regardless if the program becomes defined in a way that you don't apply. So that's what the course in general is about, Arizona cannabis industry, not so much about what is social equity. But if I may transition into that, because we have Kika, Tahir, and Andrew here, and Tom, four of the most knowledgeable experts on social equity in the country and why it's involved in the cannabis industry and what's happened. So let me allow Kika, our special guest, courtesy of Weed Maps. Will you please introduce yourself, who you are, and your expertise? And it just blows my mind that we have you, Andrew, Tahir, Tom. This is like superstar event here.
I love it. You've done a great job of assembling a great panel. Well, I'm so glad to be here. My name is Kika Keith. I am a social equity entrepreneur. I'm also by default have become quite an activist in the social equity space. I come from the food and beverage industry is how I kind of segued into the cannabis sector. In 2017, I learned about the social equity program and saw it as an opportunity, being raised in South Central Los Angeles, to kind of get some reparations for what I've seen in my community. And what we all have as social equity, the biggest, as we say, how is social equity defined? There is a common thread across this country, and it's based on the disproportionate arrests because of the war on drugs. And we've seen African Americans have the highest disproportionate amount of arrests. Our Latino counterparts are right behind us. And so the social equity program was designed to create prioritization so that we could not only get licenses, but be an active part of the workforce, basically as retribution to the harms that have come to our community. And, I found in 2017, as I started to really dig into and got involved in the policy side, and I have to say, I never thought, I came in here, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I came in this industry to take advantage of higher profit margins on the cannabis side than I had with my product in Whole Foods. But what I saw was very quickly that this was a political game. You heard of golden tickets being given out. You began to see the underwriting, they passed the law in Los Angeles based on the fact that there was going to be community reinvestment. That was one of the provisions of social equity. Not only are we going to create these licensing opportunities, but tax dollars are going to go to these ravaged communities. And what we started to see that if we just sat back and waited on the regulators to create a program for us, and we've seen it in history as people of color, we've been left out of the tobacco industry, the alcohol industry, the cotton industry. And if we don't stand and fight for it, we will be left out of the cannabis industry. And so as we say, how do we define social equity? It is a part of groups like this where we can be organized enough to go and tell the regulators, this is how we define social equity. This is what we want to see in the social equity program. You've already given out licenses. So this program is designed to make sure that we have a share of the market. And so that's the position that I've taken. As I've learned the regulations and studied, I've gone into the community and taught what I was learning, and it has become a very each one teach one experience. And you partake in programs like this and learn. That is the key, and that is the benefit that we have in Arizona right now, is there is a moment in time that we can learn the regulations, we can create support groups amongst ourselves to make sure that we are properly prepared, because all the odds are against us. The predatory investors are looking for you. They want to swipe you and your license up and take advantage of the situation because they want these licenses. And so we have to understand the incredible opportunity that we have right now to participate and have prioritization and get technical assistance. But we also have to know that we got to act like this is our job. And we have to take the time to study, and we have to take the time to involve ourselves in the policies and the politics to make sure that our voices are heard and that we have a share in the market.
What do you think of our little program, how we designed it and reached out?
Oh, I'm so excited. That was, when Dr. Humboldt talked about, the spirit and intent of the social equity program. If you say you're devising a program for a community, that has to be, one of the qualifications usually is that you're low income. We lack the education and we lack the expertise, but yet you don't provide education to properly prepare us for the licensing process. You don't properly prepare us to operate the business, and you design this program to fail. And I think the focus group idea is great. And I think the focus group needs to start, let's move away from all the policies and programming. Let's talk to the social equity entrepreneurs and workers that have been struggling to get through the programs and find out what could have been better for them. And one of the top things that I say nonstop from going through the experience and working with over 250 social equity applicants in LA, where's the education? 2.5 years, I've been holding on to an empty building for $12,000 a month, because in Los Angeles, you had to have a property to apply for 2.5 years. And I'm like, all this time I could have been training my staff. I could have been learning how to operate a business. And so that was the biggest void. And that is also the biggest opportunity. And I would just urge everyone on this call to understand, act like you're going to college on this
Right.
META program. Study, read, and you got to read them regulations 3, 4, 5, and 6 times, create study groups, learn them inside and out, because what will happen, I'm only in this position right now, I'm just a social equity owner, because I studied the regulations and it put me on the equal level of playing field with the lawyers, with the consultants, because this is all brand new. So if you take the time to learn it, when you sit with investors, you will be empowered and you will be in a position of power where they can't tell you how to run their business. They're coming to partner with you. And that's what you're seeking. You're seeking partnership because you want these licenses for your legacy. You want them for your children's and your children's children. Don't sell them out, hold on to them, value them, and build your business as entrepreneurs.
And I thank you. We anticipate thousands of people will be watching this whole series between February and March and April, then May, the rulemaking process. And they'll know, they'll be able to reach out to Jeff Tyson. We're going to have about 50 to 100 Arizona industry members and national industry members. Can people reach out to you for help and guidance as well?
Oh yeah.
Great. And that's one of the reasons why you, Tahir, and Andrew are here, so people can know that as they go through this, let's say they win at the national level, you guys are three of the leaders in this whole discussion. And presumably anybody that wins a social equity license that has a successful cannabis business will reach out back out to the three of you and the projects that you're involved in to support others who might come next. And that's what we're trying to do here. So, but if I may shift over to Tahir from the National Cannabis Industry Association. We are so honored to have you here. MITA, if anybody doesn't know, we're like a little daughter organization that has like a strategic partnership with the NCIA, which is a larger nationwide organization. But Tahir, I know you're in charge of the diversity. I forgot your exact title, but if you want to introduce yourself and say hello.
Sure. Hello. And again, Dimitri, thank you so much for having me. I want to applaud you guys for putting together this great program. It's awesome to see you guys stepping up and leading like this in Arizona to make sure that people from the social equity community have opportunities. Please forgive me if I've been a little bit busy in the background. I'm here. I'm solo with my 3-year-old daughter who's hanging out, but I love it because she gets to be educated and learn all of this stuff on cannabis. But like you said, I'm the head of diversity, equity, and inclusion at the National Cannabis Industry Association. For those out there listening, we're the industry's oldest and largest trade association. We have about 2,000 members across the country in different organizations. And as part of our diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, last year I had the opportunity to start our social equity scholarship program. And through that program, we've actually given complimentary access and membership to the organization to over 100 social equity operators and applicants all over the country in different markets. So for those people out there in Arizona, please, that you can go to the cannabisindustry.org/equity to learn more about the program and enroll again and get a complimentary membership. With that program, one of the things that I've been doing is an educational series.
Giveaway. I love a giveaway.
Yeah, for sure. So with that educational series, we've had everybody from regulators to data analytics to operators sharing their experience, much like this program here. And education really is one of the most important things. And I want to just talk about something that Kika said before me. I actually got my start in the industry in advocacy and ended up where I am today because I was actually sitting in a program much like this, like you are in my home state of Maryland, where I got started in the cannabis industry. I actually was an investment advisor previous to coming into cannabis. And as I looked at the industry, I realized that one of the biggest problems was lack of access to capital, lack of access to resources for people that come from communities like ours. Also, I saw it firsthand growing up in Trenton, New Jersey, that people of color are disproportionately negatively impacted by the war on drugs. And so I made it my mission to get out and spread this type of education. I've also had experience actually scoring applications for another state. So I also bring that experience with, just the material and different types of jewels that I drop. So again, social equity is so important to make sure that, not to echo what Kika already said, but it's important to make sure that people from these communities do have access. And I want to applaud everybody who's actually on the webinar listening, because you taking the step to be here and get access to the information is one of the first steps to put you ahead of the pack. There's so many different things that you can learn as you go through these modules. You're going to learn about a number of different topics. So it's great to be able to share this with you. And again, being early to the game is definitely a great advantage because again, when I went through a training program in Maryland, it literally ended and it was like time to apply for the licenses. Like I want to say like the next month. So you can get ahead and start doing your business plan.
Yeah.
You want to learn about finance, that's so important. And much like Kika said, I'll never forget my first experience I had somebody say, oh, you want to go get a license. Oh, you don't have the money. Well, would you be open to giving away 50% of your business? And, those are the type of things that people encounter. So it's very important to not only be educated on cannabis, but understand good business practices and also have good advisors that can help you here. So it's so great that you have, you're getting access to the former director of the cannabis program, application writers, financial professionals, all these different things that you're going to need to be able to put together to form a team. So again, I'm happy to be here and share.
Yeah, and real quickly, you're talking about finance. We have Jeff Tice, and it's a module like 13 or something. I forgot which one, but we're going to take a deep dive into the state could define it as a negotiable instrument, as a collateralizable instrument, to certain responsibilities, lengths of times, your deal structure, your finance, your capital, all those questions. Jeff and the team of experts who understand this stuff at levels that are extraordinary are going to be able to help the social equity applicants understand some of those factors and work to structure their deals correctly, regardless of what the state rules end up saying. And then when the state rules end up changing a little bit, people can come back and talk to Jeff about those kind of things. So having people like him on here, and there's like, Jeff will be moderating with like 9 other Jeffs, it's going to be awesome, so thank you for joining us. NCIA free social equity licenses. How does that work? They just reach out to you?
Yes, absolutely. So if you're
memberships.
Right. Yeah. So if you're qualified as a social equity applicant in your state, so like in Arizona, if you meet the qualifications as a social equity applicant or operator there, then you meet the qualifications for our program. Again, you can go to the cannabisindustry.org/equity and you can submit an application. We also have a separate application for people that want to support and provide services for the industry. So feel free to go there and look us up and get active. In addition to that, I also host a weekly podcast called the Cannabis Diversity Report. And I have guest minorities from minority operators from all different parts of the industry that I have on every week, because I think it's very important to hear these stories and share their experience. I'll tell you that the cannabis industry, it is the odds are stacked against you. I definitely will say that, but there are people out here that have been successful and can do it. And it's like anything else, positive mind, positive attitude, and also getting, connection to the resources, the capital that we normally don't get. And we can be successful. And so it's all about, I loved what Kika said about making sure that you understand advocacy, like those relationships are the lifeblood of any business. Being able to learn, grow, and again, like I said, taking advantage of this program, I think is the first step to get in there. Hopefully we'll see somebody that'll be one of the winners.
You know what? Out of the 1,000 people, there will be 26 winners. So they'll touch here somewhere. So hopefully they'll appreciate that. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was done.
Okay. Well, this is reminds me of like an Ellen DeGeneres episode when Brad Pitt comes out of the audience, because patiently waiting is one of my favorite people in Arizona, national cannabis, who blessed Mita with his presence about 1.5 years ago, where we gave him a bracelet, and hopefully he still has his. A very well-known figure, and I really appreciate you waiting so long, Andrew. Andrew D'Angelo from Harborside, one of the first dispensaries in the world. Thank you for joining us. Please, you kind of need no introduction, but tell the people who don't know you what you're involved in and who you are.
Sure. Well, first, let me just compliment this program, Dimitri and Mita. I hope this will be a model. I co-founded the California Cannabis Industry Association. I've been a part of a lot of industry trade associations. Nobody's doing something like this for social equity that I know of. We're so fragmented in California, we got about 300 trade associations. So none of us can really gather enough resources, or maybe we just haven't applied enough will, frankly, to do a program like this. So I commend you, and I hope we can scale it. And I hope this can happen everywhere there's a social equity program, because the educational piece has been missing. So I just want to congratulate you on that.
Andrew, there's no IP here. There's nothing. We want people to, we've shared our module with like 100 people so far. who are editing it, adding things. Your brother, Steve D'Angelo, is going to be on like week 11 talking
Great.
about responsible use. So we
Good.
want this to be shared and copied across the entire industry.
All right, man. Open source. Love it. And that's what it takes. Okay. That's the attitude it takes. Just briefly, I'm Andrew D'Angelo. A lot of you may be more familiar with my older brother, Steve D'Angelo. We're very well known for Harborside. Neither one of us work there anymore. We could tell that story on another panel too. But I now am the chairperson of the board of directors of the Last Prisoner Project. It's more of a social justice organization. Our mission is to get cannabis prisoners out of jail and to expunge their records and to reintegrate them in society. We're not the only people doing this work. The Weldon Project can do expungement, cage-free cannabis. I could go on and on. There's a lot of people doing social justice work. We got a lot of our life and long serving, not a lot, but a few of our prisoners out the final day of the Trump administration. So I was really thrilled. A lot of us worked really hard on that. And I just want to invite anyone in the community, if anybody's locked up in your life for cannabis and you need help, please reach out to Last Prisoner Project. Reach out to me, andrewdangelo.com, andrew@andrewdangelo.com. I also am a consultant, strategic advisor on my own. I also work with Global Go. And I do pro bono work for social equity folks. I actually have a woman in Arizona I'm helping now. Maybe she's watching. I hope she is.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. She has dreams of ice cream in the Arizona market. So
there's ice cream in Oklahoma.
Yes. So I do that. And, you know, the promise as Kika, we have to right the wrongs of the past. And it's not enough to give people licenses. It's not enough to educate people. We have to make sure that people of color have success in our industry. Not just success, massive success, massive, okay? It needs to be massive because that's the only way to right the wrongs of the past. If you add up all the years of life of people of color and legacy people that look a little bit more like me, maybe, it's millions of years of human life that have been put into cages because of this plant. Millions of years, if you add it all up. So I would disagree. I do think we need deadlines. I do think we need deadlines. Maybe not 120 days, maybe something that we can bake the loaf really right and really beautifully in the oven. But I do think we need deadlines. I do think we need specific resources in the rulemaking process dedicated to cannabis and social equity. I do think we need exempt rulemaking processes so that we can move faster and that we can streamline things. People of color have been waiting an awful long time. An awful long time. My first cannabis memory, one of my first cannabis memories when I had to go visit my brother in jail when I was 9 years old. And there's a lot of people who have that similar memories that are going to be applying for these licenses. And that is the why. And it's not enough just to be in the game. We have to ensure massive success. And that means people that look like me have to sacrifice. And we can't be sharks like we saw in LA and other places. Kika, you know that well. Oh my God. And you know what changed it? The lawsuit. The lawsuit is what changed it in LA. It was activism. It was activism. And you know, I'm a reluctant activist. I don't like being an activist. It sucks. But it's the only way we can trade cannabis. It's the only way that we can trade cannabis because unfortunately, people like Dr. Humble who really, really want to do the right thing, they are just as much in the dark as a lot of the social equity people are with respect to education about this plant and the meaning of this. And we sometimes forget the plant's being traded all around us constantly. It's constantly being traded around us all the time. It's being traded. You talk about public health, it's being traded all around you all day long, every day. Here in California, we've got 60% bans. Colorado, 50%, Michigan, 70%, Massachusetts, 40, 50%. You give the local people control, they'll ban it. So public policy is really important. And getting it right is really important. And we can't expect the government to do it for us. They will not. We cannot expect the major political parties to do it, whether it's a Republican administration that's more hands-off. And by the way, I like that. Or it's a Democratic administration that's trying to overthink everything and just wrapping so much red tape around us that we can't get anything done. And that's what happened in LA. So please reach out, use these resources. You have a lot of talented people going to be showing up over the course of all these modules. They all want to help.
Exactly.
Go around. You got to get the license. If it's a lottery, that's arbitrary and capricious, but there'll still be 26 businesses. I hope it's not a lottery. I don't like lotteries. I understand it helps governments not get sued, but I don't think that's a good reason to have a policy. We want to get the policy right. And I'm not sure lotteries are the way to do that. It's certainly not a way to integrate these communities into the industry as robustly as we need to. Having said that, step by step is how you climb a mountain, and being deliberate and mindful is important. But urgency, I also think, is something that we have to be very mindful of. People have been waiting a very, very long time. People have been locked up for a long, long time. So I guess that's the best way for me to begin.
No, that's great. You know, Andrew, I came into this industry for the money, and I found something else. I can't even begin. I found myself. I found a spirit. I came to understand the spirit of the cannabis community, the culture, the plant. There's so much that has been amazing when I just came for a financial opportunity. And, you know, there's Ken Sobel, Steve Cottrell, Michael Weiser. There's so many guys that I met in 2011, 12, 13 that taught me about the plant, the patient, the social justice aspect of it, the wellness of it. And I had the great opportunity of learning from some great guys out there. One, Michael Weiser, rest in peace. He's now gone. Steve Cottrell is the president of Curaleaf. He's also a great advocate. So, you know, this is an important part of the industry. It's an important part of the community. So I encourage everyone to reach out to you, to get to know you more over the course of their journey. I know you'll help them. Just call and say, hey, I saw you on Meta, and it's February. They're late February. Somebody calls you. I saw you on that thing. Will you help me with it? You're going to get a call. You're going to get a call.
Please do. Please do.
And I look forward to helping you and your brother on any projects that you guys are involved in. Last Prisoner Project, all these projects. Let me introduce Tom, and then we're going to get into a little discussion with Tahir, Kika, Andrew, and Tom about more in depth about social equity. Another individual who's one of my favorites in the cannabis space, longtime advocate, industry member, attorney, etc. Tom Dean.
Hey, Dimitri, thanks for having me on this panel today, and thank you for having me to get involved in this social equity program. It's something that is, I think, of great value to the community. Hello to my fellow panel members, and greetings to everyone who might be watching. I've been in this kind of game, I guess, in the cannabis space since early on in my career. I became legal director for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws back in 1998, left Arizona for Washington, D.C., ended up moving back here about 12 years ago. My law firm is devoted entirely to cannabis-related matters, mostly criminal defense related, but also business. I'm a founding board member of the Arizona Cannabis Bar Association. I've been seeing a lot over the last 25 plus years as a criminal defense lawyer focusing in on cannabis cases. And part of the early litigation, actually, it challenged the Department of Public Safety in their over policing on the interstates, driving while black, driving while brown, which is why we even have the statistics that are available now that break down arrests based on ethnic categories that you can find it on the Department of Public Safety's website. And it's broken down both statewide and by county. So you can take a look at those statistics and get some information that might help in finding out whether you are in a category, ethnic category that might qualify as a community, and whether or not, we don't even know for sure whether a purely ethnic category is going to be something that's going to be considered an eligibility criteria under this program. It might be a geographic location that's been over policed and where there's disproportionate number of arrests and prosecutions and so forth. That is yet to be seen. I know that right now I've been focusing my efforts on working with certain legislators who I'm not at liberty to say just yet, but about expanding the number of social equity licenses, because right now in 207, the legislature is authorized to increase the current number by 13 new licenses, which is 10% of the number of marijuana establishments. So
Is that also based on like the pharmacy counts?
Well, the pharmacy count is what limits the total number of marijuana establishments, but social equity licenses are excluded from that limitation. But the total number of marijuana establishments being 130 some, there is, under the voter protection section of 207, the Smart and Safe Act, the legislature can increase the number of social equity licenses by 10% of the total number of marijuana establishments, which is 130 some. So 13 or 14 new licenses the legislature could authorize right away. So we're working on trying to make that happen so we can jump from 26 to 39. I mean, not a huge improvement, but definitely, I think, significant and something worth going for. So we're looking at that. Some of these issues about the department not feeling pressed to have to come out with regulations and begin accepting applications in connection with the social equity program. I think that attitude by the department and saying that, quite frankly, is like kind of a back of the bus mentality. And part of the problem that we've had all along in equity in the cannabis industry and in other places, but in particular in the cannabis industry. And I think the way to deal with that right now is doing what we're doing here today. Other organizations getting involved with the department and trying to help influence a program that's equitable. And also media pressure because we're already seeing now, more time that goes by, more cities are banning social equity licenses. A lot of people don't realize under 207, cities have the authority to do that.
They're unintentionally banning social equity licenses.
But that's what they're doing. They're
right.
Unintentionally, on purpose or not, what they're doing, they're banning social equity licenses. Gilbert, Scottsdale, Payson, more cities all the time. The longer this program's delayed, the more cities maybe go in that direction.
Tom, if you put together something, META has a database of some 24 or 5,000 now. And we also have a list of emails for consumers that's at about 55,000. We can get the word out that people should be cognizant and involved in their local jurisdictions in regards to banning, to limitations on the adult use.
Right, because you're right, Dimitri. Your point is well taken. These jurisdictions may have passed these laws not realizing that the only licenses that are going to be impacted are social equity licenses.
Right.
And if indeed ethnic minorities are going to be potential owners, and in fact what they're doing in practice, the impact is to ban minority-owned cannabis businesses from their jurisdictions. That has to stop. Media attention to that will help, I think, Dimitri, in educating these local jurisdictions, as well as direct citizen involvement in, contacting their city council members and mayors to let them know that this is the effect of what they're doing. Also, the more time that goes by, the more locations are taken up, because each of these license holders gets to have an offsite cultivation facility, an offsite manufacturing facility. There's not a lot of properties in the green zone in the greater Phoenix area. metropolitan area. So as time goes by, now less and less suitable locations become available for social equity licenses. And then finally, I think media pressure has to be applied to make sure that whatever criteria the department comes up with are the kind of criteria that the communities that this program is meant to assist, what it's appropriate for and what they want to see. Because right now, and I don't think Will Humble will disagree with me, one of the greatest concerns of the department is they want to avoid potential litigation. They want to avoid getting into maybe somebody claiming that they should have been included in the lottery. And I do agree that I don't know if that's avoidable. Otherwise, we get into this merit-based system. And that the reason why the department wants to avoid that is potential litigation. If they pick one applicant over another, they open themselves up to being sued by every other applicant who didn't get chosen because they think that they were better qualified. That's why I think Will would agree the department is more than likely going to go the lottery route. However,
let me just say, you're totally right. They are going to be looking for administrative ease. They have that obligation to build the rules within the structure of the statute that the voters approved, but agencies, not all agencies do this that I know of. It's about administrative ease, whether you're talking about access in the Medicaid program, it's administrative ease. So it's A, the lawsuits, which they don't want to get into, and B, you get finished faster, right? If you have a lottery-based system, you complete the task and you can move on to your next rulemaking or whatever it is that your agency's next priority is. Whereas if you start grading papers, that's what I used to call it in my old job. Once you start evaluating things on a subjective basis, it's going to take longer because you'd be tied up in court and the judge might suspend or give a TRO, restraining order, slowing down the process and stuff. So you're right. You're totally right. It's administrative ease. And that's why I did it this way the first time.
Yeah. Well, I think, and that's natural. That's the nature of an administrative agency or a bureaucracy is that administrative ease. So what I think we can do right now is we got to put pressure on the department through our elected representatives, through media, and through direct contact with the department itself, through public comment and so forth, to make sure that they understand that this isn't something that the people want to wait on. And the longer that they wait, the more harm they're doing to potential applicants who would be qualified. And then the criteria. We don't know what.
By the way, you're right about that too.
Okay. And thank you, Will. And then the criteria.
Play up to his ego. Tom's already got a huge ego.
And then the
He's
criteria.
like 65, by the way. Look, I love you, Tom.
All right. And then the criteria, though, I think this is important because I can think of off the top of my head 6 different ways that they could formulate these eligibility criteria. A lot of us are presuming that, at least in part, that certain ethnic minorities who have been subject to over-policing in the past, certainly Black, Hispanic, possibly Native American, maybe others, might be an eligible category. I have concerns that the department might shy away from that because they're afraid of getting into, how do you say, no, you're not, I don't know, Black enough to qualify? How are they going to quantify that eligibility versus show us that you lived for 10 years in a neighborhood that was over-policed? Now Kika mentioned she lived for several years in East LA, right? And so she would qualify if it's an ethnic category, African American, and also though living in an area that was over-policed. The department, I think, might opt for the geographic location, saying that in these locations, not only they're over-policed, but they tend to be overrepresented as compared to the general population by the same ethnic categories that might otherwise qualify under an ethnic category. I don't know if that's the best way to go, but I feel that might be the direction that the department ends up moving towards. And so that's just something to consider and to emphasize to them. If you feel that there should be ethnic categories, purely ethnic categories, that's something I think the department needs to hear about early on, because right now, you better believe they're struggling and thinking about how they're going to figure out to form these categories in a way that isn't going to result in lawsuits and makes it really easy, administrative ease, as Will Humble put it. So that's what I'm saying. That's where we're at right now. And I know we're talking about people. This seminar is mostly meant to benefit, I know, people who are hopeful applicants, and there's tips I know that you're going to get about what you can be doing now in that direction. And there are things, but as importantly is to put pressure on your elected officials, both local and state, as well as the department and media, New Times, AZ Central, because they need to be made aware that this is an issue of public concern, in particular these city bans that are happening. I mean, that's got to stop. As Dimitri said, I don't know that they even realized, for example, Gilbert and Scottsdale, that this was what they were doing. But they have to be made to understand. And the best way for that is to have an article come out saying about how the impact of these ordinances are racist, pure and simple. They are directly precluding social equity ownership in their jurisdictions. And once they know that the public is aware of that, I think we start to get away from. I mean, it's less likely that other cities are gonna join this trend.
You're right, Tom. There are unintended consequences, but still consequences and impacts nevertheless.
I'm sorry, are they banning just adult use?
No. What they're banning is non-dual license holders. So anybody in operation right now that has a medical marijuana dispensary is applying for adult use for their operation. So it's not banning anybody who holds those dual licenses. It's banning new businesses that are single license holders, which all social equity applicants will be.
So those are the only, because there's this small category of like non-vacant county licenses, but they're all out in rural areas. The only impact of these is the only license category that is being banned by these measures are social equity licenses. That's the only license category affected by these municipal bans. So.
Yeah, and Andrew, I don't expect you to know the nuances of our system. There's 130 adult use license, medicinal licenses that are transitioning into medicinal, and that's it. There aren't any more. There's 8 to 12 county backfilled that are going to be stuck in the counties and not allowed to move, and that's it. But most of these, and then the 26. Okay. But I helped the city of Tucson with their ordinance, and specifically told 2 council members, let's, the more dispensaries in the city of Tucson and not the surrounding jurisdictions, the more tax dollars you get. And they're like, oh, that's intelligent. We'd rather have the dispensaries. How many more could there be? Well, really just 26 more in the entire state. So maybe 2 or 3 or 4 in Tucson. And they're like, well, why wouldn't we want them? Why would we have a restriction? Never really talking about the fact that they were social equity licenses, just the fact that there was 26 more. So a lot of jurisdictions like Gilbert, I think, is like, it's a political thing where they're just throwing up the dog whistle or whatever. Hey, we just hate marijuana, so we're banning adult use. Just a symbolic thing from a politician, but they really don't understand the consequences. And that's what we see happening across Scottsdale and Gilbert, and as Tom was saying. So we'll definitely take some action on that. And Tom, if you could write something up, I would love to get it out, because I think that's a horrible consequences. And who would be opposed to that? Who would oppose us on that?
I think Tom's right, man. You got to call it out as a racist policy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's and cancel that thing. Are you kidding me? For sure. That's what needs to happen, because that's the only way to win this battle. I don't think the court of public opinion is how we're doing all the bans in all the states, whether they be whatever the ban is. That it's public opinion that is putting pressure on the elites to do the right thing.
And I think everybody has really good points on this. One thing that I think Kika brought up earlier was that we really need to be our own advocates and our own lobbyists at the local municipalities. We need to go in to the hearings when they're discussing these things. A lot of it's posted, but you have to really dig in order to find out when these things are. But we really have to be the ones to put in that footwork on our own, and then go to these meetings and have representation, because otherwise these unintended consequences, like blocking off an entire portion of a law, that's one of these consequences that some of the East Valley cities are seeing, and that we're now discussing.
I'd love to give some practical calls to action to our potential social equity entrepreneurs that are on the line. And Tom made some really good points. The press is integral in this process. And I have to say, Weed Maps did a great job early on when I was just searching with how can we get the word out. And they put our talking points that we wanted to have a city council on their Instagram pages. We have to utilize our social media. We all have some sort of contact. If nothing else, you can call down to your local newspapers. You can write this up. I heard Dimitri asking for Tom to write something. If we could get some talking points, because there is nothing better than us speaking up for ourselves. There will be nothing else that will effectuate change than us speaking about the needs that we have and what we want to see and what we're demanding in this program. And you will see that's what makes you a grassroots lobbyist, and it is imperative. The education is great, but if we don't fight for this opportunity, we'll just have a wealth of knowledge and won't be able to practically apply it. So I'd say let's just start getting active on talking to each other. We're our own best support network. It only takes 2, 3, 5 of us to get together and say, hey, let's get 3 more people. We're going to send this letter down to the city. We're going to send this to the administrators. We're going to send this to the press. And one by one, it only takes a few of us to start to activate this messaging, but it has to come from us. That is very critical. And the other thing, when we talk about, it might not be intentional that the regulators are delaying or whatever. The other big opposition that we have are the lobbyists for the multi-state operators that want your market position. Right? They don't want you to compete. So they don't want you in the cities where they're already set up. They don't, and they want your licenses. So they're going to lobby and they're going to be behind the scenes at City Hall talking to the city regulators to make sure that these amendments in the social equity program is geared to their advantage. They don't want it to be about race, right? Because it's a lot easier to get around that with their friends and their families to make them fit geographically into these areas. So it is really important for us to recognize what we're up against so that we organize. We must organize while we're learning and educating ourselves to be prepared for licensing. We must organize and we have to let our voices be heard. And it does not take a lot of us. It just takes us uniting in small groups and getting the word out about what's happening.
Well, one of the things about this social equity program, we've had about 150 people, hover in and out today. We had 400 people sign up. And we know how this program is going to work. Our META database is now over 25,000, and we'll have thousands in this social equity chest of people to reach out to. So come April, when the rulemaking process starts, we'll be able to reach out with a pretty good voice and get some action on some of these things. But we can do that right now too. We just want to, the intent of this whole program, while advocacy is essential, important, as all you guys are talking about, was just to get, just get some basics, the ABCs 1, 2, 3s, so that I can make sure that all the people applying for social equity understand the differences between indoor, greenhouse, outdoor cultivation, who's doing what in Arizona, what works best, who to call, so that when they do get that license, they can have that information provided to them from Arizona. So let me see, we'll go back to Tom. Tom, are you done?
Yeah, I was done. Thanks, Dimitri.
Okay, that's great.
I've got to go. I'm on data right now, so I can't go video, but yeah.
Where'd you go? Okay.
And,
so
and I also wanted to add that I think, piggybacking on what Kika said, I think it's important to call and contact your elected officials, because one thing to remember in Arizona, this is something that the people voted in. So politicians are there to do the will of the people. And so letting them know that this is an important issue to you and that you want to make sure that this business is equitable is something that is very important. And I saw where that actually played out in Maryland to the point where I'll say it's important even pre-licensing, but it's also essential all through the process and even post-licensing. Because even in Maryland, we saw where by putting pressure on our legislators, we were able to make sure that there was even an actual review of the applicants after the process, because we found that we had a situation in Maryland where the license, there were additional points for people that were African American or Native American under a certain net worth, but on the application there were certain people that that represented themselves as something they weren't. So even part of the process that we did afterwards was having a review process to actually have them, review those teams. So, again, just having being in contact with your local politicians and making sure that you let your voice be heard about these issues and what you want to be seen done is very important.
Well, and what's also cool is what we're doing. We're going to have these supplemental break off webinars. And Andrew, you should know this. Your brother, so how did it come about? So Zuber Lawler and we were chatting about potential webinars, and I talked to a lot of these legislators behind the scenes who were asking stuff. So we're going to get this is ideal. We're going to get 8 members of the House and the Senate active right now towards the end of February together on one of these Zoom calls. And it's going to be opened up by your brother, Steve, who he can start shaping some framework and shaking some trees because they're trying to figure out what's going on. So we're going to do that webinar and have that open to the public and have a good discussion about what's happening in Arizona. So, you guys, again, thank you for all the work that you do. And you should know that that's coming up. That's not one of our modules, but we anticipate many break off webinars because there's more and more people reaching out to us as they find out we're doing this from the Arizona cannabis industry saying, hey, I want to help out. I'm from Bake Bros. We have a great product. We know that these 26 guys are going to eventually be stocking their shelves with Bake Bros. What can we do to help? Bake Bros does enough to help Mita. We love Bake Bros, but they want to teach about edible making, about manufactured products. They want to do more. So, this whole process is going to be very exciting. So, Paul.
So now that we've got everybody introduced and kind of we know who everybody is, I prepared just a couple of quick questions that we can spend a few minutes. Our panelists can kind of answer some of these questions. Some of them I'm just going to kind of spout out the answer is we don't know yet. There are a lot of unknowns. But what we do know, we'll share that information. The first, point that everyone already has kind of discussed, but how many licenses are available? And, what is that opportunity? There's 26 of these licenses available. And the 3 parts of a license are, your retail location, your offsite cultivation, and your offsite manufacturing. That's the high level view of what this license provides.
And let's just know the licensing structure, we're going to go over that, like all the little nitty gritty nuances, I think in week 3 or 4 after we go through the state laws and federal laws.
Right. And yeah, and again, on this call, I'm just trying to do very high level who, what, when, where, and why. So the kind of next thing that I wanted to go over is how much does it cost to apply? Now, we don't know what kind of financing opportunities that are going to be down the line, but what we do know is that for early applications, it's going to cost an early applicant roughly $527,950 to just be able to apply. That's not including build outs. That's not including, branching in any way. That's just proving that you have liquid capital of $500,000 and about $27,950 in administrative fees.
Right. So as Paul was saying, those are the current rules that are in place for early applicants transition from, those are early applicants county backfill. And then the medical marijuana transition to adult use, they don't have to show 500.
Well, for early applicants, they do. I don't know. Again, we don't know the rules of the social equity program, but for early applicants, I signed in, to the AZDHS website. I signed into the facilities application portal so I could see it firsthand for myself. And, it's on the final rules that were published by AZDHS in the beginning of January.
And this is important to note because as we go through this process and DHS determines what the application fees, we're going to have to educate proactively DHS that $500,000 is not a good thing to demand that a social equity applicant show.
Right.
$25,000 is not a good thing to insist that a social equity applicant pay, because that's their default.
Yeah, you're going to have to push back on that. I'm sure they'll have that in there.
Well, but I mean, and hang on a second here. I'd like Kika and Tahir and Andrew. Imagine if we had a program where you had to show $500,000 of liquid capital and do a $25,000 application. How fair do you think that would be? And based on what you've seen in other jurisdictions, would that be consistent?
Fresno is doing that now. In Los Angeles, you had to have a property. So, you didn't have to show financial records, but the cannabis properties are 5 times more than the other properties on the block, right? I had to put down a $60,000 deposit. Where are you getting that from? And so, whether you have to show it or not, you need it to play. And that's where that access to capital that Tahir was speaking about earlier is the barrier to entry.
Absolutely.
And I think it's also the significant piece when we're talking about, understanding how much it costs for licensing. We need to understand how much is it going to cost to open up our businesses. We need to do a friends and family raise and get some money to bring on a CPA or utilize the resources that you're having, so that in this process as well, we can start raising the capital that we need, because regardless, you need it to play or you're out of the game. And that's something that we make priority.
And to piggyback off of that, Jeff or Andrew, or even yourself, Kika, can you give us an idea or a ballpark of, after applying and being awarded the license, what does it take to actually start up?
It's going to be a function of the city, of course, or the area, as Kika's pointed out, that getting a lease, paying above market rates, all of those things would, they add up in a hurry. But maybe what's more important, I'm going to build on what Kika said, is that there's a lot of very aspirational folks on this call. And what's important is to begin to pull together some experienced folks, because if let's say you do get a license, or let's say you really want to follow through with applying, what's very important is where do you go for that funding? Even friends and family are going to look at you sideways if you haven't put together some competent folks that provide for them a belief, if you will, that this person can execute. And this person has thought through some of the business, and it doesn't matter in any business that you're in, that you have to surround yourself with the kinds of folks that you can rely on, that you can help to build, we'll call it the packaging of your business, which makes other folks or provides other folks a reason to believe in you and bring some money to the table. If you get a license, if you're in that lottery and it pops up, you do need to have a lawyer and an accountant, so that we'll call it the vulture capitalists are not swooping in and having you do something that's incorrect. So I did go to college. I am certified. I have been through a million of these disputes, as many of the folks on the call here. But I've also, because of what I do, seen the tears and the heartbreak of folks that made rash decisions and didn't think through of bringing together the competent people that tell you what you need to know, not what you want to hear. And that's the difference. It's starting, hopefully this whole process here is starting to, or getting you to understand and think about who you're going to collectively pull together to create that ironclad team.
If I may push that over, and Paul's, money is going to be very important. I might push it over to Andrew and to hear NCIA and the D'Angelo family. I think your brother's, I saw your brother's name on some sort of private foundation designed to help social equity applicants. Andrew?
Oh, we're working with quite a few of the groups that are helping. So look, I don't have $500,000 liquid to go get a license right now. I don't have $500,000 liquid to go get a license right now. I don't. And if I was in one of those neighborhoods, Oakland did that, by the way. Oakland did it by neighborhood, police action in neighborhood and proportionality. Didn't work. Didn't work. Did not work. So, the city it might have been ease of administration, but in terms of ensuring success for these communities, it did not work. We still don't really have a lot of social equity businesses up and running in Oakland, and the ones that are up and running are fledgling terribly. And if you're from a disaffected community and that's the way the rules are, how are you going to have $500,000 liquid? It's just not going to happen. So I question whether you're going to get 26 authentic applicants.
I would say, if I could just add to that, Dimitri, this is Tom. I think that who benefits from the high application fee, $25,000, $500,000 in liquid? Those are the investors who are going to be looking to partner with a social equity partner, a qualified social equity applicant. They're going to want to come in because that definitely does not in any way benefit the social equity partner, the person who's, the eligible applicant. It doesn't benefit that group of people at all. Who it benefits are big money people who can come in and then, leverage the social equity partner into a role of lack of meaningful management control, lack of income, that sort of thing, kind of disenfranchise the social equity partner. We've seen that happen all over the country. So again, that type of a requirement, application fee, liquid assets, that is discriminatory and it does not benefit the people that this program is supposed to benefit. So, that has to be pushed back on really hard.
Absolutely.
Andrew, I have $36 liquid capital. I'm out.
Right? It's so hard. All of what we're learning in the beginning of this webinar, we were talking a lot about the promise of social equity. Now, a couple hours later, we're starting to see the obstacles that
barriers to entry
exist already within the Arizona system, whether it be the $500,000, whether it be the local bans, whether it be the lottery system that may or may not work, whether it be the neighborhood system that may or may not work. I'm starting to feel it in my body sitting here with all of you today, the constraints,
Well, and this is good that we've had this discussion because already I'm thinking, our modules are been designed, but I'm thinking we should have an April module based on access to capital. What are the funding sources out there for social equity applicants that exist? Because I don't even know the name of the one that I saw your brother's name on, but we should have them on to talk about as a potential funding source.
Jay-Z just announced 10 million. Snoop Dogg's got his fund, Mary Jane or whatever it is.
Well,
there's folks that are starting to mobilize and 10 million from Jay-Z. I'd like to see another zero on that number, but it's a start.
We'll have Jay-Z on in April and he'll talk about how he's going to help the social equity applicants with their application fees. Because he's Jay-Z and he cares about the Arizona social equity applicants.
Well, look, he's got a brand now. And so, look, but this is real. He's really going to do it. Okay. Snoop really does have that fund.
Hang on. Let me text Jay-Z.
That's the thing. I can't get a hold of Jay-Z either, man.
You can get a hold of Jay-Z.
Well, I'd like to be a voice of optimism as well. Because I went down the first route the first 2 years and I thought that I had to just go with the 51-49%, had to give the investor 49%. I really didn't have any value. I had to learn from them. They were going to put in up to $1 million in the business, but I had to pay that back. So I'm creating debt and equity. That was standard. And it wasn't until the city screwed up and I had a chance to reset. And I came back with a different position of power. And that's where we all have to just start, where the education is so crucial. Because you are going to have to negotiate and you are going to have to be in the room with these sharks. And you just have to be smarter than them, because you do have something that they can't have. These 26 licenses are for social equity. So regardless, if they take advantage of you, it's because you weren't in a position to take advantage of them. And so I would really say the heart of how I made my transition, and I just raised $950,000 for 42% of my company. And I did that with no debt. And I did it with two partners, one with 30%, the other with 12%. And I got really creative and I changed my position about the valuation that I was giving myself, the value that I had, and I could hold my own in the room with them. I knew what I wanted and I knew what I wanted from them. I'm not an experienced operator. I valued the person at 30% higher because they brought in experience. But it took me a good year and a half to get in that position where I was okay with 5149 to saying, hold up, I'm actually the one who's in the position of power. And the more that, once again, I'm just going to keep talking about the education. Yes, it's hard. There are a lot of sharks, but we're beating them, y'all. You start to work. We just did a partnership with Fox Rothschild that I'll extend out to Arizona, because they have chapters out there for pro bono legal assistance. You get a good lawyer with you. You got your CPAs running your pro forma. You go in those meetings and you can hold your own. And then you have a business negotiation. This is America. It's capitalism. So whether it's cannabis or not, if you're in a room with the business with my beverage company, I had to negotiate, right? Like, we can't look at this as a government assistance program. Y'all got to be up on your business, and we're entrepreneurs and we're CEOs. And if you learn enough and prepare yourself to sit at those tables with the help of resources and advisors who schooled me, I got a ton of them. And I go to a ton of these webinars, and each time I catch a gem, so that when I'm in these meetings with these investors, I know what I'm talking about, and that is added value. So there's no way that we can work around having the sharks. There are more people interested in investing, more so than ever, especially with the new president in charge. The hope that it's going to be federally legal. You're going to get a lot more people from other industries that are not cannabis. You just don't have to get cannabis folks to invest in your business. I think it's time for us to be creative, but the heart of that comes when we know our business inside and out. And that's when you see the transition to power. And there is enough time right now in the 6 months to transition that power that you can sit in a table and do deal making and not get taken advantage of.
You know, and we're going to talk about the federal aspect of it. I think in week 4, week 5, a lot of stuff on the federal legalization, the different impacts, different paths. But I'm really feeling that in April, you know, and Jeff, maybe you can help me on this. Andrew, we'll talk to your resources. I'll make sure Jay-Z's on the call. But we really need to start getting some good information for the social equity people out there about financing. Maybe I can get the First Fidelity guys on here. And I've talked about 7 or 8 people who want to start a bank. You know, they're just crazy, but they're not so crazy ideas. You know, and if it's a negotiable instrument, people should be able to borrow against the license, which will be very interesting. But I definitely think we should switch some of those ending modules in April to give people some really good dynamic understanding of different deals. And Jeff, I'm really pleased that you're on part of the team, because you're a spreadsheet guy, and I love that.
I have done 1 or 2, but I was about to mention that we've thrown out $500,000 as though that's a done deal. And we've thrown out some thoughts about being involved in the community. There's a regulatory process right now, and Dr. Humble addressed the prior process that we went through. But what will more than likely happen here is we're moving into a social equity program that sometime in summer will have final rules, but there will be a process where the department will issue a draft and will invite feedback and address some of these points. And so what we can do is be educated to be on the website, to be looking for when these things come out, and then be very active. And then talk to the press, your folks that have some influence and can help to shape this program. So first of all, it's accessible for those to apply, because we're talking about applying first and getting in enough information so that the program is tailored to make it inviting for those that have the interest.
Right. And one thing that I just want to follow that up and say is, as you're looking at solutions for trying to get access to capital, as somebody that's that used to be a financial advisor, I want to advise you there's always two sources of financing, right? There's debt and equity. So getting money from somebody does not necessarily mean that you have to give up equity in your company. Also, in the chat a couple minutes ago, I just dropped a link to something from my friends at a company called Meadow. And they worked on this with a team of lawyers, to open source document called a simple agreement for future equity. I think that everybody should take a look at it. You can use this to like have an agreement beforehand, how you value your company. Again, there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. So I think that what Kika said, you need to remember that you're the person that has the power in this situation. If you don't meet the qualifications of social equity, you cannot get a license. So that's the starting point from here. So that should be something that you're thinking about in any of these conversations that you're having with anybody. And in certain states, I don't know whether it'll be in Arizona or not, but they could put it in place so that a certain percentage of the ownership has to stay with the equity applicant. So if something like that were in place, then that could actually help the equity people to be able to maintain control.
So in April, we're now having a switch in the modules, sources of capital for social equity applicants nationwide, hosted by Tahir. Sorry.
Hey man, like I said, I'm always down, again, because
And Jay-Z.
Hey, I'll see if I can get Jay-Z, but
I'll get Jay-Z. He owes me a favor.
Again, and like I said, I scored as somebody that scored, like, again, the application that I scored, because I had a background in finance and cannabis. It was a question talking about how you're going to finance your business, and I can tell, and how you're going to complete financial transactions. And I can tell you that these large companies, when they're doing deals with people, a lot of them are debt deals. They're not always giving up equity in your company. Of course, you have to give up some in business. There's no such thing as something for nothing. But again, I think from the starting point, you need to realize that you're the person in power. And if we're talking about the way minority business owners, a true minority business is classified, right? Like, you have to maintain at least the 51% ownership. So anything less than that is uncivilized, I guess, for lack of.
Dimitri, I want to jump in just real quick. Something that was really, this has been a really important conversation. And I'm telling you, the people at Department of Health Services, they don't understand what you just said. Like, they don't get that there's a way to score an application in an objective way and get a defensible response, like to get a defensible score that they can, I think that it would be very valuable to have an opportunity to get folks like you just to have one-on-one conversations with the players at DHS to educate them about that this scoring can be done in an objective way that you can defend, because they're starting from a place of, if they're ignorant, and I don't mean that in a bad way, they just don't know this stuff. And they start with their default position as, well, let's just do a lottery because you can't score. These are just a big mess. But what you were just talking about is an objective process where you evaluate objectively how they were going to finance. How's this structured? Is it legit? And so I think that's a really good use of time between now and when they open the docket. Once you open the docket for a rulemaking, it becomes a very official process. But before the docket's open, if you have focus groups, which I'll talk to the team there and see if we can get that started, you could have focus groups that are informal, that aren't part of that rigorous rulemaking process. I think that would really help a lot.
Right.
Sorry, Tahir, go ahead.
No, and just to say what you said, I think the other perspective is that having capital can actually mean a lot of different things. And then we've seen different programs categorized in different ways. Capital can mean, do you have the money actually in an account Do you have the money in escrow somewhere? Do you have a commitment for the capital? So for
And
example, in my deal that I did in Maryland, I had a commitment with investors that said he didn't have to give me any money up front, but it was a contingency deal. If I get the license and I have access to this line of credit for whatever of X amount of dollars, and the way Maryland structured it, we were allowed to do that. But again, there are many different ways to skin a cat. And I think that, again, having a capital requirement puts social equity applicants in a disadvantage in the first place. Having them required to maintain property, like Kika said, she's spending $12,000 a month on real estate. You hear all these stories about people in Massachusetts that were going through the same thing. Just the fact that you even have to do that in the first place puts us at a disadvantage. Who from these same communities that they're trying to help has this money to apply for license, has this money to go for the real estate. So again, I think as people are thinking of financing, I think it's just important to, again, like you said, have the rules done in a way where it's advantageous to the people that they're trying to help. But for the applicant side, again, just how you even look at it and kind of be creative on how you get the capital.
Absolutely.
Hey, Dimitri, I'd like to ask Will Humble a question real quick, because in 207, is established the social equity program, and there's supposed to be $2 million that is allocated to the development of that program. Could that money be used to cover things like application fees and other costs that are, associated with applications to assist social equity applicants in avoiding, having to be limited because of their lack of access initially? Obviously, if they get a license, there's going to be no shortage of people throwing money their way, and that's you got to be careful about that. But what about that $2 million? Can't that be used to finance their application?
Yeah, so it's been a while since, that's at the very end of the statutory language, I think, right? So I'd have to read that again. As I remember, it was very open-ended and non-specific. So if a statute doesn't say you can't do it, then generally you can. And that's why statutes are really usually written really restrictive, but this is written by not the legislature, but advocacy groups. So I would start with a default position is saying, yeah, you probably could. If it doesn't say you can't, it'll be at the discretion of the director. I mean, when I was in my old job, I just was every day. I'm like, are you kidding me? I have this much discretion. It's at the discretion of the director, probably.
Yeah, and Tom, that's within the spirit of the act. So, a judicial review would determine probably that would be okay.
I think it would. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna
good idea too.
Yeah, no, it's a really good idea, Tom. And there's a lot more to discuss. And this is going to be on a weekly basis. So much information. We're going to develop a community. There's going to be add-ons, supplemental things, special things happening live. Jay-Z will be on in April to talk about it, how he cares. If he isn't, I'm telling J-Lo, I don't know. We're going to figure something out. We'll get Lady Gaga or something. Anyways, but I want to give everybody 30 seconds to sum up. And let me just real quickly go one by one. Tell us what you think. We're going to see you guys back on future panels. By the time people are finished with this 16+ week course series, they're going to know a lot of people and a lot of people who care and are available to them. But Weedmaps, Kika, thank you. Why don't you start off, say goodbye, give closing thoughts, and then we'll move to Andrew.
I appreciate the opportunity. I hope everyone is inspired and motivated. And just remember, read again and participate, be actively engaged in the advocacy side. Understand that that's first and foremost the political side. Start prepping and looking for real estate, because that's the other side of the game that's underestimated. Tom mentioned it earlier, that you'll be presented this opportunity and then there's no properties. So just start looking, just start being engaged and really take it seriously, because it is a great opportunity. I'm
definitely going to get into real estate and properties in our future modules.
That's great. And I would like to say, I put it in the chat. My website is lifedevelopmentgroup.org. We do free one-on-one consultancies. It's right on the homepage. for anyone, especially on the advocacy side and strategizing on how you organize locally and with your community, create the talking points to get with your legislators. We're all in on assisting on that side of things. So feel free to reach out. And thanks for having me, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Kika.
you, Kika.
Thank you for making yourself available for resource. You'll be hearing from people for months from this call. Let's say Andrew, your turn.
Thank you. I just want to, I just put my websites on the chat for everybody. Look, be optimistic, like Kika said. Go after it. This is your time. This is your moment. Despite the constraints, you can make it. We can go around these things. We can come together. We can form communities. If you lose the lottery, find someone who won and create an alliance, create a partnership. There'll be another lottery at some point. The thing will open up more, and be optimistic. I know we talked about a lot of problems, and I probably piled onto that a little bit, but you know, this industry has given, like Dimitri was saying, a living for me and my family, but it's also given me a very meaningful life, and so go get it.
I'm with you there, brother, and we're members of the same High Point Jewelry bracelet family.
I don't have mine on. Mine's in my jewelry case, but yeah, man, I love that group.
No, these are bracelets and advocacy. So Andrew, thank you. We'll be seeing you and your brother on future panels, and folks out there in the world, please reach out to them. They're a great resource. Let's go to Tahir. Tahir, NCIA.
Yes, sir. So again, my name is Tahir Johnson. You can find out more about NCIA at thecannabisindustry.org. If you want to learn specifically about the Social Equity Scholarship Program, that's thecannabisindustry.org/equity. Everybody can email me. It's my name, Tahir, TAHIR, at thecannabisindustry.org. Also, my cell phone number is 202-365-7310. If anybody wants to shoot me a text, I don't mind. I try to make myself available to people as much as possible. Also, if you want to check out my podcast, you can go to thecannabisdiversityreport.com. Every week I have different people, again, some of the just inspirational, man, some of the top social equity operators, and then all different types of industry stakeholders. So, you know, I'm always here to share advice, and good luck to everybody. Like Andrew said, if you don't win this lottery, it's not over. You know, for me, as somebody that started out just in 2019, applying for a license and then got into advocacy, continuing to stay on that path has gotten me where I am today. So it's always, you know, continuing to stay in that fight and just keep working at it. And I'll drop all that info in the chat for anybody that didn't catch it.
Yeah, to hear, oh man, amazing. We'd love to see your kid, because everybody's wondering what the kid looks like here. It's like,
yeah, Ari, come here, sweetie. Here she is.
We'd love to have you on future panels. We love the NCIA being involved.
They didn't want to be seen, obviously, but here she is.
All right, that's cute. I need one of those. All right.
2 minutes.
So to hear, I'm just thrown off by the kid here. I'm thinking about if I'm going to have a baby or not. So anyways, but back on subject. So thank you. Anything you can add to, you know, you've got our outline available to you. Anything the NCIA wants to add, twist or turn? We're already changing the end modules. We've got a long path of teaching ahead of us. And as you said, all the information and knowledge that people acquire can be used in a number of ways, not just social equity applicants. So thank you very much.
One thing I do want to add, and Dr. Bobrow, you can kind of follow up on this. We do want everyone to have the opportunity to get a certificate of completion. And so I'm just going to pass this over to Dr. Bobrow really quick.
Oh, and say goodbye.
Okay. Yeah. You know, this webinar, we hope to be part in the future, a part of our 4-credit program. Right now, if anybody wants to send me an email and get a list of attendees from Destiny, but you can reach out to 420business@scottsdalecc.edu. That's 420business@scottsdalecc.edu. I'm happy to work with all of you. We're looking forward to our continued partnership and education. And as I'm listening to everyone, I was a former chair of the Inclusiveness Council, and so we work very closely with the communities on in areas of inclusiveness. So I think this is going to be a great strategic area to all of us as a community to work together to move toward.
Well, we really appreciate the vision of Scottsdale Community College to partner with us, and people are going to be learning tons. Paul, did you? Should we go to Will?
Yeah, if anybody else has anything
to
add before their goodbyes.
Will, maybe we'll see you next week or the week after that when you have some more updates. People are going to be looking for that 3-minute briefing as to what's the latest of happening with social equity. We invite you to be a panel on all the panels, for every single one, the entire time, depending on how much time you have. I don't even know if Jeff, Paul, and I have that much time, and same with you, Dr. Barbara. But do you want to give a couple of minutes of closing thoughts, and then we'll go to Jeff?
Yeah, just thanks for the invitation. This is going to be a fun project. I'm really interested in doing whatever I can, both to help the folks that are watching and the rest of the panelists. I'm learning a lot just from being on here, which is fun in and of itself. And in the end, I hope to be able to somehow, some way influence the process so that we get a better set of public policy out of this. That is, as many people have mentioned here today, that really truly benefits the people that it's intended to do, and not just checks a box that says you met the statutory requirement. And so, there's a lot of members of my team that are still there, former team that are still there. I have great relationships with, and perhaps I can find a way to learn enough here for myself to influence the process, as well as me helping folks that are watching and listening to learn more. But hey, I got a hard stop. I got to go right now, though.
Yeah,
okay.
And bye, Will. This video is going to be emailed out to media across Arizona and across the country. So Andrew, Tahir, Dr. Barbara, Kika, please, if the media reaches out to you, asks what the hell are those guys doing in Arizona, share with them. We're also going to need some social equity applicants that are willing to go on the media. I get calls all the time, and please email me, DimitriDowning@gmail.com, so I can have 2 or 3 go-tos, because they're asking for people that are interested in this process. So that's a point. Now, Jeff and Paul, please, if I miss anything about what we're doing here over the next 16 weeks, include that as you say your goodbyes, and then we'll wrap it up.
I'll just take a minute, 30 seconds, Dimitri. I think
Sure.
that nobody knows everything. And so what's very important is to start to look at your advisors. They may not be your friends today. They will be, after a while, but that's not necessarily the first criteria. Is look at the things, know what you don't know. And, there are known knowns, known unknowns, and there's just stuff that we don't know is coming down the pike. But the most important thing you can do right now, I think, is read the regulations and start to look at who your team is as you move through this, because you can't do it all yourself.
And learn about the industry through the META Social Equity Mentorship course.
Yep.
I forgot Tom. Tom Dean, are you around? Tom Dean.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm here, Dimitri. I would just say really quickly that I know we talked about some broader policy issues today, and that's important for us to do right now, especially at the beginning. But there may be some people watching who are like, wait a second, I logged in here because I thought I was going to learn about what I need to do right now to file an application. And I know the future modules are going to get into more detail about that. And there's plenty of practical steps that you can take now that we're going to get into in those future modules, such as looking for a location, how to do that, forming an LLC. I mean, that's something that you can do right away, is get started on that. Seeking investment. And there's a lot of agreements that you're going to have to put together with your partners as this thing goes by. So, thinking about, working with an attorney who can help you put those agreements together. Those are the kind of things that I know that, Dimitri, you're going to talk about in the future in more detail. Nuts and bolts. What can I do right now to get started moving forward and making progress towards getting an application filed? So all of that's coming in future modules, I know, but those are some of the things that, you can start thinking about now. Thanks, man.
Paul?
Thanks again, Dimitri, for doing this.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with you, Tom. And Jeff as well. There's some very specific published information on the AZDHS website that we can speculate what's going to happen, but there are really a lot of unknowns at this time until they develop these rules. So the best thing that we can do for each other is to share these nuances, share our expertise, and continue educating. I guess creating ourselves as like mini lobbyists for our communities, and really just being advocates for this program and letting our voice be heard by the Department of Health Services so that they know that we are discussing these problem areas and some of these barriers to entry. And I think it really just needs to be taken in. All of these factors need to be taken into account. So I think we, for the goal of this first week, we did discuss a general possible timeline. We discussed what we did know of who qualifies, and right now that is unknown. We have, very limited information about this process, but we do have a panel of experts for different facets of that process that are happening throughout the country and locally here in Arizona. So thank you everybody for being here, and please feel free to call on me for any resource information. I'm always available.
Yeah, so let me wrap it up. This is great. It's a start of a long journey. It's my great honor to just be in the right place at the right time. My family did well in cannabis the first 4 years, and I consult. Some available for people if they want more information on the private. But it is a great honor of mine to be in this seat right now as the industry is transitioning from medicinal to adult use this week, and people are focused on what they need to focus and making money and serving patients in the community. But for me to be able to reach out and help others, I mean, nothing feels better than that. And I have a sidekick named Paul. I have Yoda on my shoulder. I have Scottsdale Community College, Dr. Bobra. I have Jeff Tice. I have Weed Maps. I have Copper State. I have Tom Dean, Kika, NCIA, Andrew D'Angelo, Steve D'Angelo. I could go list hundreds of people are coming over the next 16 weeks to help others. And we get to put it together. Nothing could feel better than that. And nothing could make me sleep better than that. So Andrew, we are brothers in arms. Say hello to Steve for me. And we will see you next week for state regulations, I believe. We should probably name the title of the module at the end of this one. We got to get this all together, but it's going to be great. So thanks, folks, for coming. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Blessings.